Voldigoad versus Rimuru Tempest. What happens when two supreme rulers at the absolute peak of their power go to war, sovereigns who transcend the universe itself, and where the very concept of concept no longer has any effect on them? On one side stands a demon king who defies all established logic, a being whose very existence rewrites the fundamental rules of reality, refusing to bend to the constraints imposed by the gods. On the other, a reincarnated entity, a slime, who absorbs the world system, devours it from within to become its uncontested master, a cosmic predator who transforms the structures of existence into extensions of his own will. This is not a mere physical or magical battle. It is a titanic confrontation between two living paradoxes, one acting as the supreme editor of existence, capable of correcting and erasing the errors of the multiverse, the other as the primordial architect, the one who designs and reconstructs the foundations of everything that is. Imagine a clash where the concepts of creation and destruction merge into a chaotic whirlwind, where each strike could reshape entire realities, erasing past eras or forging impossible futures. In this duel, the stakes surpass imagination. Infinite worlds could collapse, ancient divinities could tremble, and the very fabric of causality could tear apart. So then, who will emerge victorious like the sun that inexorably rises over the horizon, dispelling the darkness of the night? For, just like absolute victory, when it comes to a demon lord, there can be only one, a supreme dominator whose reign eclipses all others. Voldigoad, this terrifying being capable of destroying hundreds of thousands of worlds with a single spell. But beware, this is not a mere projection of raw and ordinary energy, as one might imagine in classic fantasy tales. No, this is a spell that erases worlds on a conceptual plane, a magic that intertwines destruction and creation into an unstoppable attack, which cancels out enemy defenses at their very root before they can even manifest. Let us take, for example, his feats in the light novel, where demonstrates an absolute mastery of destructive magic. He uses spells such as an incantation that invokes a blazing apocalypse, consuming not only physical matter, but also spiritual essences and the causal links that maintain a coherent world. Associated with Voldigoad, this anti-existence weapon forged to obliterate everything that exists, regardless of its nature, whether it be matter, energy, immortal souls, or even abstract concepts like time or fate. Positions himself as a being who entirely bypasses the notion of durability. Voldigoad is not an ordinary sword. It is the principle of destructive reason incarnate, capable of cutting through divine orders, dimensional barriers, and the most absolute immunities, rendering obsolete the protections others consider inviolable. In the official accounts, has erased entire gods, not only their physical forms but also their histories accumulated over eons, going so far as to obliterate the very meaning of their names in the annals of the universe. He does not merely overcome defenses by brute force, he simply renders them irrelevant, as if they had never existed, forcing his opponents to face a reality where their most precious assets are reduced to nothing before the battle even begins. With capable of destroying one of the small worlds of the Silver Sea with a single punch, and let us recall that these worlds transcend by far the mere universal level, forming infinite layers of superimposed realities where each stratum harbors entire cosmologies. We enter a domain where physical power defies imagination. In the land of traces and the demon garden, there exists a perfect copy of literally everything that exists, an infinite mirror reflecting the whole of creation, with the azure sky containing countless worlds of infinite size, bubbles of reality endlessly expanding, nested within one another like cosmic matryoshkas. And sits enthroned above it all, a lion of destruction whose roar could shake the very foundations of the Silver Sea itself, that vast multidimensional expanse composed of 99 or more strata, each deeper and more destructive than the last, where physical and magical laws evolve according to depth. His origins as the demon king of tyranny place him as the very incarnation of domination, a being whose mere presence alters probabilities and imposes his will upon the flows of fate. On the other side, Rimuru Tempest, after his ascension as the fifth true dragon and the acquisition of void god Azathoth reaches similar levels of power, heights where the boundary between creator and creation fades away. Rimuru can collapse, recreate, and rewrite entire multiverses, manipulating cosmic structures like an artist shaping clay. With Nihility Collapse, he unleashes a raw, destructive force that goes far beyond the annihilation of a mere universe. It is a primordial void energy capable of consuming infinite realities, transforming everything into an absolute emptiness, where even the concepts of time and space cease to exist. In the light novel, this ability is described as an infinite source of nihilistic energy accumulated within Rimuru's imaginary space, a timeless universe that is infinite and infused with void energy, serving both as an eternal prison for enemies and as a reservoir for devastating attacks. Rimuru exists in a world where countless universes coexist beyond themselves, planes disconnected from linear time, meaning that the destruction of one does not affect the others, forming a labyrinth of parallel and superimposed realities. Each of these worlds or planes of existence contains countless versions of themselves, like timelines endlessly repeating, fractal branches of potential events where every possibility gives birth to its own cosmos. With access to Nihility Collapse and the authority to generate thousands of cardinal worlds, those universes that serve as the cause of entire multiverses, each harboring infinite dimensions and hierarchies of divine powers, Rimuru's cosmic presence extends beyond conventional existence, reaching the true sense of further than the eye can see, a domain where the limits of human or divine perception are shattered and where Rimuru acts as both guardian and remolder of these vast expanses. These two demon lords are capable of destroying entire multiverses and structures far beyond, while Anos wields destructive concepts that nullify the very origins of things, erasing the roots of existence before they can even take form. Rimuru, on the other hand, reshapes and governs existence itself, imposing his will upon the flows of creation and destruction as an absolute master, thanks to Turn Null, which draws its power from the void. In terms of pure brute force, these two titans are almost perfectly equal, a precarious balance where each advantage of one is countered by the countermeasure of the other, making the duel not only physical, but also a battle of cosmic intellects and conceptual manipulations. Anos's speed is immeasurable, a level of swiftness that defies all quantification and transcends the constraints of ordinary physics, allowing feats such as traveling through time by sheer speed or moving outside the established laws of time and space. In the light novel, Anos acts outside of time and causality, reacting within frozen time, nullifying the effects of actions before they occur and rewriting the course of spells preemptively. In battle, he stopped a clone of himself trapped in a time stop and reversed its outcome, demonstrating speeds that not only surpass light but the entire temporal framework, allowing movements in dimensions where the concept of duration no longer exists, rendering predictable attacks obsolete against an anticipation that borders on omniscience. Rimuru also possesses immeasurable speed, capable of moving thousands to millions of times faster than light. But it does not stop there. With space-time transfer, Rimuru can instantly navigate in and out of temporal and spatial layers, crossing dimensional barriers as if they were mere veils. The imaginary space functions as a timeless prison infused with nihilistic energy, a void where time has no hold, allowing Rimuru to imprison opponents in an eternal nothingness or to emerge from it for surprise assaults. He can react to events before they end by converting all sensory data into magical information, anticipating enemy movements through predictive analysis accelerated by his Mana Ciel, a supreme evolved intelligence that optimizes every aspect of his existence. In his later forms, Rimuru operates in dimensions where time has no meaning, moving within the void beyond causality, a realm where the chains of cause and effect are broken, granting him absolute freedom of movement. Thus, in terms of pure speed, Anos and Rimuru balance each other once again, both surpassing light infinity, time itself, and arguably reaching irrelevant speed, where movement becomes an extension of will rather than a physical constraint. Anos breaks causality, making it malleable at will, while Rimuru transcends it, existing outside its limits like an omnipresent observer. Anos Voldigoad is capable of regenerating from almost anything, meaning that even if his body, his soul, his timeline, and his concepts are erased, he will simply return. An inevitable resurrection anchored in his nature as the very incarnation of domination itself. This level of invincibility finds its roots in his essence as the Lion of Destruction, where the closeness of annihilation only strengthens his source, making it more powerful at the brink of extinction. He does not live in the conventional sense. He defines what life and existence mean in his presence, imposing his reality on everything around him. Destroying Anos Voldigoad would require eliminating the very idea of will itself, a fundamental concept that underpins all creation. Rimuru's durability is layered, composed of multidimensional barriers that protect against physical, magical, and conceptual assaults, of an immunity to destructive concepts, of a spiritual anchoring that ties him to the void itself, and of restoration protocols at the data level that automatically correct any alteration. Rimuru constantly auto-corrects any existential threat, thanks to his Manas Ciel, which monitors and optimizes his state in real time. Even if erased, his existence stored in the void, and the spiritual realm allows instant resurrection, placing him beyond the duality of life and death. Both Rimuru and Anos possess conceptual regeneration and immortality that surpass the field of conventional destruction. There exists no known method to erase them permanently within their respective cosmologies. Once again, these demon lords seem to have found their perfect equal, a mirror where every strength meets an unshakable counterforce. In terms of abilities, this is where things truly become complicated. I could spend hours detailing each of the abilities these two possess, exploring the nuances of their magical and conceptual arsenals drawn from the light novels, but let us focus on the ones that really matter, the ones that could tip the balance in such a confrontation. Anos is a force of destructive reality itself, a walking vortex that bends the laws of the universe to his will. His magic eyes of chaotic destruction pierce through the flaws of spells, dimensions, and even divine attributes, detecting structural imperfections to exploit them mercilessly, turning the enemy's assets into fatal weaknesses. His spells surpass logic, defying the mathematical and physical principles that govern worlds, such as when he reverses temporal flows or nullifies divine orders with disconcerting ease. He possesses resistances to time manipulation, conceptual erasure, spatial suppression, and even anti-magic. Immunities forged through battles against gods and primordial entities. His sword is the supreme weapon, but Anos himself is greater still, a being whose mere presence is enough to dominate. His sword is capable of erasing the concepts of existence themselves, ignoring durability, resistances, and immortality, cutting through the purest essences as if they were paper, erasing not only the body, but the very idea of the opponent from cosmic history. He can even force his enemies to resurrect solely to strike them down again, a calculated cruelty that transforms death into an infernal cycle under his absolute control. In the light novel, Anos demonstrates this ability through spells such as a temporal magic that reverses the flow of time on a target, bringing a defeated enemy back to life to prolong their agony, or through his magic eyes of chaotic destruction, which manipulate divine orders, imposing a forced resurrection by rewriting the laws of life and death themselves. Imagine a battle where victory is not an end, but an eternal recommencement of suffering, where Anos, as the demon king of tyranny, uses incantations such as which alter existential roots to compel an enemy to relive their final moments, amplifying psychological terror as much as physical destruction. This ability is not merely a demonstration of brute power, it reflects his essence as the incarnation of domination, capable of bending the will of gods and mortals, forcing even immortal entities to face a loop of death and rebirth that breaks their spirit before their body. Rimuru, however, is the absolute counter-machine, a vortex of adaptation that turns every threat into an opportunity for evolution. He possesses complete analysis of all potential threats thanks to Ciel, derived from his unique skill Great Sage, which mutated into Raphael and then into Ciel, acting as a magical supercomputer capable of simulating entire battles in a fraction of a second, bordering on pure precognition. In the light novel, this analysis is illustrated during epic battles, where Rimuru instantly dissects enemy skills, such as during his confrontation with formidable opponents, where Ciel predicts and neutralizes conceptual attacks before they can materialize, generating personalized countermeasures based on data accumulated from thousands of simulations. She can replicate the abilities of his enemies in the middle of battle, absorbing their essence to integrate it into his arsenal, turning a perceived weakness into an insurmountable strength. With Azathoth, an ultimate skill born from the fusion of the ultimate skills Raphael, Beelzebuth, Veldora, and Velgrind, the Demon Lord Rimuru can consume any matter, energy, magical information, or even entire souls, breaking them down into elementary particles to strengthen his own power. In the official accounts, this ability is described as an insatiable abyss that swallows destructive spells, dimensional barriers, or divine entities, as seen during the absorption of Milimnava's Drago Nova, a powerful magic that would otherwise have annihilated entire worlds, converting the hostile energy into fuel for his own attacks and capable of executing that same attack in turn. Nihility Collapse allows him to destroy the metaphysical and the imaginary, trapping enemies in a timeless and infinite domain expansion, the imaginary space, a void realm infused with nihilistic energy where time comes to a halt, turning adversaries into eternal prisoners of a nothingness that erodes their very existence. This ability, born from his awakening as Azathoth, is an ultimate offensive and defensive tool, capable of generating infinite amounts of nihility energy for assaults that erase not only the physical form but also the underlying concepts, such as an opponent's fate or immortality. His metamorphosis, an innate ability as a slime evolved into a perfect humanoid form, allows him to change shape at will, adopting appearances or physical structures suited to any environment or threat, whether it is to infiltrate hostile dimensions or withstand extreme cosmic pressures. Add to that his Manas Ciel, which not only anticipates movements, but optimizes in real time every aspect of his battle, analyzing streams of magical data to predict entire causal chains, not to mention copying any attack used by the Demon King Arnos, along with his conceptual defenses, such as multidimensional barriers that block existential erasures, thanks to the layers of nihility forming those barriers, and a multiversal perception granting him an overview of infinite realities, making him a fighter with counters for virtually any ability imaginable. In the light novels, these elements intertwine during confrontations against primordial entities, where the Demon Lord Rimuru adapts his body and mind to counter magics that defy logic, evolving in the middle of combat to emerge stronger. Thus, while the Demon King Anos can break, the Demon Lord Rimuru can learn, copy his techniques, adapt, and rewrite the rules of the game in his favor, a dynamic process that transforms every enemy assault into a lesson for his exponential growth. The Demon Lord Rimuru is fundamentally the incarnation of Meliodas' full counter from the 7 deadly sins, but elevated to a cosmic level, reflecting not only attacks but surpassing them through proactive evolution that renders enemy strategies obsolete. In terms of pure abilities, the Demon Lord Rimuru would take the advantage, his arsenal being a living ecosystem of adaptations that constantly adjust, unlike the static yet relentless domination of the Demon King Anos. So, if these two Demon Kings were to clash, who would be the one left standing on the throne, ruling over the ruins of a multiverse devastated at the end of the battle? This fight would unfold in one of two ways, a duel where every instant could shift the fate of realities. If the Demon King Anos manages to land a conceptual strike with his sword Venus Donoa on the Demon Lord Rimuru, then Anos would prevail, his weapons slicing through essences to erase even divine immortality, as demonstrated in the light novel where he obliterates gods while ignoring their infinite regenerations. But with Azathoth, the Demon Lord Rimuru is capable of absorbing both the attacks and the weapon itself without suffering the slightest damage. Thanks to Ciel, he can then analyze and understand in detail the functioning of Venus Donoa. which would allow him to develop a countermeasure and no longer be affected by that sword. Even if the Demon King Anos rewinds time to retrieve his sword and attempt a new attack, it would remain ineffective. Thanks to his spatio-temporal domination, the Demon Lord Rimuru would not be affected by this reversal and would retain the data as well as the improvements obtained by CL during the first absorption of Venus Donoa before the time leap. But if the Demon Lord Rimuru were caught off guard and struck at the source, the Demon King Anos could erase even the deepest spiritual anchors, making resurrection impossible by erasing the very concepts of rebirth. But that is a scenario to dismiss, as the Demon Lord Rimuru could never be caught like that. However, the adaptation of the Demon Lord Rimuru is where this becomes an insurmountable problem, a barrier that transforms the predictable into the unpredictable. These two fighters exist beyond time and even further, meaning that the Demon Lord Rimuru's adaptation and countermeasures are not only instantaneous but preemptive, operating in domains where causality is fluid. From the moment you enter battle, your data has already been processed, analyzed and neutralized by Manas Ciel, who simulates billions of scenarios to generate perfect defenses. Thus, in the battle between these two monarchs, the two Demon Kings, the winner is the Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest. The reason why the Demon Lord Rimuru prevails is that, while the Demon King Anos Voldigoad dominates through force with conceptual suppression and metaphysical invulnerability that impose his supremacy as an unalterable law, the unlimited adaptability of the Demon Lord Rimuru, the absorption of his opponent's techniques, his layered defenses stacking like infinite strata of reality thanks to the power of nihility, and his evolution guided by Ciel, his Manas, make him the perfect opponent for the undefeated king. These two warriors balance each other in almost every domain, climbing to similar levels and reaching outer-versal powers that defy entire cosmologies, where the destruction of infinite universes is only a prelude. But when it comes to abilities, no one does it better than the Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest, his adaptive genius transforming the fight into an equation he continuously solves. The Demon Lord Rimuru wins not because he is initially stronger or faster, but by becoming exactly what is necessary to triumph, evolving in real time to counter every aspect of his adversary. In the end, the Demon King Anos Voldigoad is the sword of the cosmos, a force born to dominate, a being of fixed supremacy who cannot be surpassed within the logic of his world, cutting through divine orders like an inescapable verdict. But the Demon Lord Rimuru Tempest is the book that rewrites the universe, a being not fixed, but in perpetual ascension, a creator who turns the pages of fate to invent new chapters. The Demon King may strike as the final word, imposing an abrupt end, but the Demon Lord Rimuru is the author of the next chapter, extending the story beyond any predetermined conclusion. The Demon King Anos is dethroned, his eyes filled with tears in the face of an unexpected defeat. Who knows? Perhaps he will once again become the Demon King in 2,000 years, reborn from his ashes like the phoenix of tyranny.
Anos, まだまだだね.
But make no mistake about one thing, the Demon Lord Rimuru has no weakness, none. Those who claim that his dependence on CL is a weakness have absolutely understood nothing. It is like saying that Goku is weak because he depends on his transformations, or that Ichigo is weak because he depends on his Bankai. Frankly, that makes no sense. Using his most powerful abilities is not a weakness, it is the very foundation of combat. It cannot even be called dependence. It is like saying that humans rely too much on their legs to walk. Isn't it ridiculous? When you possess an ability, you use it, you perfect it, and you rely on it to survive in critical moments. So yes, the fact that the Demon Lord Rimuru relies on Ciel is completely normal, because Ciel is not a crutch. On the contrary, she is an extension of himself, a partner. Rimuru and Ciel are one. They evolve together and become stronger together. Wanting to separate them is to deny their true nature. And above all, this is not something unique to Rimuru. Naruto had Kurama who advised him and lent him his power, and no one ever said that it was a weakness. On the contrary, It is what made him stronger. Ichigo, on his side, had Zangetsu, an inner entity who guided him and trained him in his worst moments. That is not a weakness, it is an asset. In reality, every fighter depends on their techniques. Saying that a character would be weak if their ability were taken away is absurd. If Goku were stripped of his ability to transform, his story would have ended at the Freezer arc. If Ichigo were stripped of his Bankai, he would never have overcome certain decisive battles. And it is the same for absolutely every anime character. So stop saying such nonsense. On the battlefield, one uses all their strengths to triumph, not the opposite. A fighter who holds back has no chance. And Rimuru, he does not need to hold back, because he masters one of the most absolute forces in the entire manga game. But tell me in the comments, do you agree with the verdict? Am I right? Am I wrong? Share your thoughts. Let's debate these titans and explore the nuances I might have missed. And tell me in the comments which matchup you would like to see next, whether it's other demon kings, isekai heroes, or deities from other series. And tell me in the comments, among the countless characters you know, who could defeat Rimuru Tempest, the fifth true one, this slime who conquered the multiverse through his infinite ingenuity. Do not forget that with Azathoth, Rimuru can absorb any attack into his imaginary space, which is infinite, and even appropriate the most powerful technique of his opponent to turn it against them. In addition, he benefits from total immunity to conceptual attacks, which are instantly stopped by his multidimensional barrier powered by Nihility Collapse. So think carefully before naming a character you believe could defeat him.